Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
And I'm your other host, James or Jexic.
I'm your third host, Colby Dauk.
Yeah. But we have a fourth host today.
Yes.
And our guest today is none other than J. Arthur Ellis.
Guest host.
Guest host. Well, guys, we're super excited to have you guys on, talk some Summoner Wars, and hear what you guys have been working on.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm excited to be here. I desperately tried to wrangle some stats beforehand. I got the overall stats in for 2024, and the user stats are still running. I see the circle. Hopefully it's not disrupting live games because I forgot to make a copy of the database and run it locally, so it's running on the live database.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Everything's breaking as we speak.
By the time we get to stats, maybe we'll be done.
Right, that's the hope.
Well, to start off, James had a special question for you guys.
Ooh, a special question.
It's a stealth question. I'm asking it without you guys knowing in advance.
It's not even on the outline.
It's not. No.
I can't handle it.
I think you can. I think you'll be all right. Basically, this last week, I went to Disney for a week.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, this place is like, one, it's a huge operation. But two, it's actually like quite impressive even if you don't like what's going on. Like, if you're not a big Disney fan, you're just
Right.
kind of impressed at what they do with their brand and everything.
It is impressive to go. I just wouldn't want to do all of my vacations there like some people do.
Colby's been there, twice in the last 2 years?
I've been there a couple times recently, yeah.
And it got me thinking, like, okay, let's say Plaid Hat in an alternate universe or a future universe has like multiple billions of dollars and they're making their own series of theme parks.
Mm-hmm.
What would the Plaid Hat theme parks look like? What would be the biggest rides? The best food? How would you divide it up?
I would just copy Disney ride for ride and rename them after Summoner Wars characters.
Okay, so like, what would like Expedition Mount Everest be? The one where you're chased by a Yeti?
Expedition Mount Vargath.
Would there be like a make your own summoning stone area, like the make your own lightsaber?
Yeah, you know it.
Oh, yeah, we'd have to get a real immersive world.
Different colors of glitter and water inside of a plastic sphere.
Actually, you pay the ticket entry fee, but you don't really know if you're going to be a summoner or just like a cave goblin common.
Like, sorry, buddy, you're a clinger today.
Yeah.
I think that's way better. You walk in and they're like, no, not today. You're not a summoner.
Yeah, not everybody could be a summoner.
We were thinking that obviously instead of having those little like ears, you would just have various kinds of plaid hats that everybody could wear.
That we have covered.
Yeah, we already do that at conventions sometimes.
The other thing I noticed is there's like a gift shop every 100 feet, and the board games in them are not good. You're gonna have to come up with other things to put in them. You know, like MagCog plushies. Would that be on the list?
We've never sold plushies very well, but we're a $1 billion company, so surely we've got it figured out by then.
The question is, what would like the big roller coaster be themed after? The big, fast one.
There's like 4 of them, right?
There's a couple of fast ones. There's like right now there's like Guardians of the Galaxy, which is fast and has you spin and like has stuff going on in the background. That I feel like could easily tie into your current big Kickstarter, probably. Like with Wandering Galaxy,
Yeah.
right?
Wandering Galaxy could make for a good roller coaster, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're just going to buy Disney's thing and repaint everything.
And then like Tron was really cool. You get in like a motorcycle, so that'd be like a Sand Goblins ride, maybe.
Ooh.
Ooh.
You get to choose your vehicle, motorcycle, truck, glider that crashes every time.
Mhm.
Currently, it's just a motorcycle, but I mean, maybe you could change it a little bit. But they have other things that are gliders and stuff, or where you fly around. That could be like Ava's Soarin'.
I feel like you gotta sign a waiver if you have like a biter ride where you're just crashing constantly.
Mhm. My only theme park access has been in Ohio, so everything is abstract, basic fun, but basic
We're
roller
talking about-
coasters. This whole themed experience is something I've only read about.
Surely you went to the Berenstein Bears as a kid in Cedar Point. The Cedar Point Kids thing had a Berenstein Bears theme. It's Snoopy now, I think.
When I was little, I went to Kennywood in Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow. So, a Kenny-themed park.
We had one around us called Santa's Village that like you go to in the summer, but it was all just like Christmas themed.
Christmas in July.
Yeah, and there was like some North Pole that I think like way too many kids probably tried to lick, and
Oh,
and we're always told don't touch that. And I know it's cold and that's cool, but someone probably licked it.
So yeah, that's our theme park.
You just copy everything.
But what would the food be?
What's the cuisine like in Etheria or the other worlds?
It'll all be made by Cookie, who appears in all of the Crossroads games now. So it'd be various Cookie's Galley for Forgotten Waters, Cookie's Campfire for Freelancers. I don't know what Cook E makes in Wandering Galaxy. I haven't read it. I haven't read enough of the story yet.
It's always trash, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's always-
Yeah, for some reason, that's the rule of traveling groups. Their cooks don't have to be good at cooking. I don't know why that is. They just have to be into cooking, I guess. Or it's like cafeteria at a school. You know, the bulk, the volume is more important than the quality.
I think it's an old trope from like sailing days or whatever, where cooks just make and do with what they have, and was
Yeah.
a sailor first and a cook, third.
And they got a lot of people to please.
Even though we no longer have that frame of reference, we still just following the old tropes.
They're not having gourmet meals and sushi and stuff in space.
No, there's no replicators in the Wandering Galaxy world.
I feel like space sushi might attack you, so I don't know if that's a good thing.
Right. Absolutely. Well, in Wandering Galaxy, your first patron is a kind of a squid guy, so he's the loan shark that you get a ship from.
Nice.
Yeah, he would be offended if you ate sushi, at least in front of him.
So there's a couple upcoming factions you guys have planned for Summoner Wars. A couple that are currently doing like previews, like the Filth and the Chosen Grove.
Disease and trees.
Trees and disease. You got them transposed.
I had another thought for them. One point was like orchard and tortured.
We'll have to come to you next time.
That's pretty good.
The orchard and the tortured. That's a good one. Next time we're struggling, I'll message you.
Okay. I'll come up with some silly rhyme. So the orchard and tortured are coming.
Yeah, which are already previewing.
Just announced. I don't think that. Just a couple cards each.
Okay.
Colby's been dropping hints of things and stuff on.
Yeah, I'm trying to improve viewership on the stream by randomly dropping spoilers. But I think just one person listens and goes and relays it on the Discord where everybody hangs out.
I think it's
Yes,
more than one person.
Someone gets randomly assigned and they have to go watch.
Yeah.
All right, Tort, you're up again.
It's always Tort.
No, but I feel like Eagerbone will almost always do it too.
Ben 10 usually shows up. I don't know if he's relaying the information, but he's usually there.
I mean, he's probably got to cross promote his stream.
So, Trees and Disease, or Orchard and Tortured, I listened to your podcast with Donald and Nick, and it sounded like we were just starting the Trees playtesting at that time.
Yeah, I think things have changed a little bit since then.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think it's kept...
I mean, Tree's still big.
Tree is big.
Tree is very big. It never got smaller. We never resorted to lowering its life.
But we did have to make concessions to bring their power down, as I recall.
Yeah, but they are still, protect the tree. It only can move a very tiny amount before the very end game.
Its starting gate starts on the back row, but you can summon next to the tree.
On that podcast, Nick was saying that he was thinking of putting forth that the tree can smash something for 5 damage with its epic event, and that also somehow made it to the end. So that is happening. We had to restrict its movement in order to keep that. Before it could, like, a couple times per game, uproot and roam around. Now, even when it does that, it only moves 1 space. But it gets to stomp on something and obliterate it.
Yeah, there was certain points in testing where the tree really was like a NASCAR just flying around on that one turn.
But I think it makes sense that the tree remains slow until the very end. So that's finished up. Man, the filth what we have previewed is the 1 mutation along with Demagogue. You can see just from that how simple the mechanic really is. It's really just, if you summon a mutation, you need to destroy a friendly mutation or cultist before you put it there. Like, that's all the mutate ability is. A lot simpler than former rules cards in previous editions and stuff.
Of like 2 paragraphs long of stuff.
And separate stacks, I think. Did they have a separate stack?
They did not.
The cave filth, there was the prison pile.
Gotcha. That's what I'm thinking of.
Colby, how do you feel about where Filth ended up and what they look like now?
Good. I mean, it was a goal to make them basically do, at least thematically, and I think more than thematically, basically do what they did in the first edition because they were a fan favorite. We've been asked about them from the jump, to do it without a bunch of extra rules, to keep the rules to the card. We did include a new rule at the behest of everybody involved that wasn't me, in that we made the mutants limited, which is a new unit type. And it only matters in deck building. You can only have one of each limited unit.
I mean, that's good just to prevent people from having to buy 4 copies of stuff.
That was the argument. I was like, but if we do it right, you don't want the same of mutation in it. Like, the whole point is that it's a toolbox that you can go get the mutant you want when you need it. And they're like, no, if you can't put 4 in the deck, people will feel like they have to buy 4. And I was like, just tell them not to. No, it won't work. They'll have to buy 4.
It's like what happened with Magic. You can't just tell people not to buy cards.
Be clear, what that means is that, first of all, on the battlefield at the start, you have a kind of a cultist unit and then a mutation. That mutation is a limited mutation, so you can't even put another one in your deck. And then there are 3 cultist commons, so your typical 4 copies each in the deck. But then the last common slot is filled by 4 different common mutations that are all limited, so that there can only ever be 1 copy of them in a deck.
2 champs are mutants too, right?
Yeah, so you end up with 7 different mutations, and then 3 other commons that are normal commons. That
are all cultists. So it still has the theme of you bring out weak cultists and mutate them into whatever you need them to be.
And also the Abomination.
Yeah.
And then there's the Abomination, which is new. I think, was there there was an Abomination in the
first?
There
was, but he did something you can't do in this edition.
Yeah, you rolled a die and that was its attack value, which is so silly, and I love it, but yeah, it's not possible.
But we made it even sillier. You put mutations under the Abomination on your turn. I think maybe it's once per turn you can put a mutation under there, and he gets, I think, a +1/+1, 1 to life, 1 to attack, or is it just to attack?
That's to both, yeah.
And he gets the abilities on that mutant.
So he just piles up abilities.
So yeah, he's like this. He's this thing that you just keep mutating with new mutations. And he has them all at once, and
so basically like a gross Cyruk or Vlox or something.
Yeah, and from the very beginning, that idea was in there in this edition, and I mean, Colby and Nick were such huge fans of it that it somehow made it through the process.
If you can get Nick and I aligned, we'll figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah. It's often the 2 of them that are opposed, and I have to referee. But yes, that they were on the same page. And I mean, we worked really hard to make stuff balanced. And it's hard because so often a thing like that, you don't want it to be too dominant. So it ends up being too weak. It's real hard to get it just right. But I think in this case, we did.
You got to thread that needle.
Yeah, he's really fun and really strong, but it's not a thing that will happen every game at the same time.
Yeah, Abomination in testing was one of the most fun champs I've ever played with. It's just like a multi-tool, a Swiss Army knife of like, you can just add the mutant that you need in that instance to it, and it can become like, do you need some extra reach to fly over something? Like all these different aspects of these different mutants that just give it all these different abilities. And eventually by the end, if it's still alive, it's got all the abilities.
Right. Yeah, it's Mega Gate, except we did it on purpose this time. If you notice the art, it's probably the most similar art to first edition art. Not the style is still Martin's style, but like, I think that, looking back, everybody loved the old Filth art the best, so it seems like...
Yeah, John was good at making creepy stuff, so like a lot of it was just like, do this guy in your style. There's a lot of first edition art in the reference images for the Filth.
It's going to be another fun one where it's just like people are going to enjoy circling around and trying the weird new thing with it.
I think it's going to be one of my favorite factions. But after the filth, we have a couple more factions coming in. Colby, like you mentioned, you sorta teased one on one of your streams, the Spectral Conclave.
Midway through doing it, I realized, oh, I'm showing them the cards, and all of these are going to change in some way.
Right. Yeah, that may have been a mistake. You could have just showed some art.
Intended to show the art, and then realize, well, I'm scrolling through cards, and somebody's going to freeze frame this.
And they did.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on anything that you saw text-wise being there, but and in fact, most of it's already changed. But it is this psychic trickster faction that summons these illusory units that have a temporariness to them.
We don't even know.
Right
for
now,
sure
they're all
what it is,
overpowered.
yeah.
Each time we nerf them, they still come back overpowered. So we're still working through that. There's some magic denial there, and that's, kind of more powerful than people expect it to be, I think.
So I guess we saw art for something called that was the Spinwood Dragoons, but now you're calling the Black Sun Rebellion, right?
Yeah, man, you're up on all the tidbits.
Yeah, there's some of the stuff that people mentioned on Board Game Geek. I'm like, where did they even find?
I think it might have been Martin from Martin or something. I don't know. Like maybe people follow his stream and they're like, "Who's this summoner?" or something,
So many sources. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Martin sometimes labels folders with the art, and if his names are correct, then just people assume that they're like, oh, says Filth Faction on it. Well, that's got to be the Filth sub coming then.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, Colby from the beginning told him he could use the art for that kind of stuff. That was a good decision.
I opened it up more for him than for most, just because I wanted to, because he has a following that he has to continue to provide content to, and I didn't want there to be ever a conflict between getting Summoner War stuff done and being able to continue to do that side of things.
We've been trying to get him on this podcast, and he hasn't responded yet. So I don't know if you could poke at him and be like, hey, these guys are nice.
They only bid us once, so...
All the way from Australia, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, people have heard it's like Sinis Stormrider or something like that. I don't know.
It's now Pyra Stormrider. She rides the mighty dragon Brimstorm.
Ooh.
Who's too mighty right now, and I'm trying to fix that, because the idea is that Brimstorm will start on the battlefield, but it's all going to be way too strong, and so I'm thinking it needs to be if Brimstorm's killed, your summoner takes 6 damage, and the summoner only has 8 life. So I'm thinking of doing something like that, but I don't have any room on the card, so I don't know.
One of the community members did want to know, and I don't know if you guys will know this yet, but they wanted to know if the dragons are going to have pecs, like the Fire Drake. And I think they were leaning on hoping they weren't going to have pecs, like the Fire Drake.
They're definitely going to have the wings are part of the forearms, but the Fire Drake doesn't fly, so they have to be constructed differently. The Fire Drake has to be they share a common ancestor, but they're not the same thing. They're not the same species. Whether there'll be pecs or not, I don't know, man.
Okay, I'm looking at
I don't
Fire
care
Drake.
about some of the weirdest stuff.
I'm looking at Fire Drake right now, and I mean, the Fire Drake doesn't have nipples, so I don't know if you can properly call those pecs.
I mean, I'm not my question. I'm the messenger.
No, maybe abs they were talking about. Having abs?
They said pecs.
They are in the position and size. It's you've got layers of scaly looking stuff, but then, right up in the chest area, they do get a lot longer. So I can see that, but, at the same time, no nipples. So what are you going to do?
If Barton draws pecs, I'm not going to be like, nope, start over. So there's your answer.
But more nipples. Got it.
Man, the Fire Drake can't fly. He's got big old wing things.
Does it have flight on his card?
No.
Obviously, they're vestigial wings.
They're like your gallbladder. Just doesn't work.
Gotcha.
Yeah, can penguins fly? Can ostriches fly?
All right.
I went to Animal Kingdom, and the ostrich, we were told, cannot fly.
That's just in.
And then Guild Dwarfs, I think, are the faction that we know something about.
I think you know something about the Veckids too.
Oh yeah, the Veckids. I forgot about the Veckids.
How can you forget about the Veckids?
So that's a Nick faction, and that is
We haven't even alpha tested it yet, but we have summoner art.
currently we're trying to figure out which pairs come together, which will be based on what makes the best rhyme. So
The semi-text be like, okay, how do we rhyme these guys?
I think the best we have so far is for the illusion guys, wizards, and then the Veckid lizards, wizards and lizards. I think we can do better. And then you've got guild dwarves. They have a lot of structures and stuff, but I think that they haven't hit the fun level of a couple of the other ideas yet.
Yeah, they're probably the most tested of the ones that are still in alpha, but
But they're not ready.
well, no, nobody's like fallen in love with them yet. So
far, the best we've got there is dragons and wagons, or dragons and flagons.
Pretty good.
So nothing good.
Nothing.
The Conclave and the Island Veckids could also be ghosts and coasts.
Coasts? Oh, because of Isle Veckids. Yeah, that's true. Ghosts and coasts.
That's a good rhyme.
This is true. I don't know if the Isle part is going to come through in the mechanics or not. We'll have to see.
I think
they're pretty
I think
watery.
it does. They have water stuff going on. Yeah.
They're a water spirit, right?
Water spirit. Oh, okay. Oh, it could be then. Ghosts and coasts. That's pretty good.
Makes me think of that old show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yes.
Art has started, but testing has not, because Martin has a kid on the way.
Ooh.
I don't know if I should be sharing that publicly, but
Congrats to Martin.
he's won that steady work, so I'm trying to keep up with him. And I'm looking into whether we can do the next 6 deck boxes before and not have to wait to have 12 lined up and make that work economically.
Honestly, we're a little behind, We're just on the bleeding edge here testing the stuff we got, and then we've got decks for the rest of them, but they're really fuzzy still.
Do you have ideas about, I know you probably don't want to be asked yet, but like, do you have any ideas about Wave 6 yet? At least what the symbols are going to be? What combos of symbols you've got for that?
Usually it's like whatever we have the kind of the neatest thing of, like the neatest idea for, we'll move that set of symbols up. So we have groupings of symbols, but we don't necessarily know which grouping is going to be next.
So, like, this is a possible group of 6, and this is a possible group of 6, and then once you come up with a cool cool pitch for one of those 6, you'll be like, okay, this one's moving up now.
That's exactly right.
And there's a lot of blanks. I'm looking in this spreadsheet. This relates to a different question maybe, but the deep dwarves are in a list somewhere.
Ooh.
They're in a wave. Then you've got Donald's Black Bog Groaks in another different wave.
But they're not cool enough to move up that wave yet.
Well, that might be the one that takes it. Yeah.
Right.
I know there's been clamoring from new avian decks too, like a second avian faction.
Like dark avians or something.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let me see if in that Groaks, what do we got here for air?
I think the Groaks have air.
Oh, the Groaks are air. Yes.
Because the idea for the deck had a lot to do with
bouncing stuff around,
damaging your stuff to move it. Yeah.
And on the last podcast with Nick and Donald, I also threw out the idea of lumberjack orcs that would have been primal and growth.
Ooh, lumberjack orcs. I like that.
Timber orcs.
Timber orcs was the name of the faction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good name.
What would that be? Primal and what?
Primal and growth.
Primal and growth. Let me see.
Because I was thinking you get boosts on the summoner and boosts on the guys.
And he even has a Brub replacement in that deck.
My idea was there'd be a melee Brub that has to get his ability to be called Chainsaw, and he has to hit all swords.
Nice. Yeah, that is not. That's a good combo, but that's not in with the Deep Dwarf cycle or the Groaks cycle. So
Man,
we'll just have to wait.
Yeah, and Donald's been waiting for years. I think he's been disappointed. So
for his second frog deck, which was supposed to be the first frog deck.
Right.
But you mentioned Deep Dwarves. Are there any other factions from the original game that are still looking to be ported, or even perhaps alliance decks or second summoners, that kind of thing?
I think Deep Dwarves are the only ones we haven't done. I don't think there's any plan to do any of the alliances.
Or even like Raoul. I mean, I don't like just totally change
Well,
how
he's a
Raoul works.
mercenary, and he created some problems that I'd rather not repeat.
Right, but I mean, you can maybe come up with him as not a mercenary, you know.
I think we used some of his stuff, some of his ideas.
I guess maybe in Shadow Elves and Eternal Council we see some.
Yeah.
Some gameplay concepts, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I don't know how we would really describe his theme. You know, all his units were kind of brown.
Yeah, his theme was walls.
We don't have walls anymore, so what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And even in trying to come up with a symbol combo for him, I'm thinking maybe Logic and Light, and that's Guild Dwarves. So yeah, maybe there's no Raoul.
The whole idea in the mercenary faction was that the mercenaries are all kind of like, we can go anywhere, and so they were all kind of, you know, on the more generic side. So yeah, I don't think they have a home.
Maybe Raoul will be a mercenary champ at some point.
Maybe.
Yeah, that could be good.
Although we have another mercenary champ coming out soon, right? Tress.
Tress, yeah, is a dice tower. Every year, the dice tower does a Kickstarter to kind of help fund their operations for the year. And every year they come and ask if we want to do any kind of promos or that. And of course, Tom's a huge Summoner Wars fan and has certainly lended to the success of the first edition, which, you know, lends to the success of the second edition. So we try to accommodate when we can swing it. They have an exclusive on it for a year. And I think you can go get it from like their store. You don't have to have back the Kickstarter. I think they like maintain a store after that for the promos. Or at a convention, I know they have them when they show up to a convention. But anyhow, after a year, then we'll ship it out to subscribers. And then eventually the plan is to do a Mercenaries pack that has all of the past promos that, you know, people who've stayed subscribed won't need to worry about.
An option for people who are catching up, or
probably be a website only kind of thing where it's just, all right, these promos that you've, you know, that you've seen and haven't had access to because you're buying from your local game store or you're overseas or something like that. We will make them available all as one promo pack.
Tress is a crossover with Wandering Galaxy, so she's in that game. She's an apprentice in that game. So you can get her as a follower there, or if you're playing 1 to 2 players, then she plays with you as sort of
sidekick of sorts.
An apprentice to the characters, or like an apprentice pilot or something of that sort.
In the 1 and 2 player game, the players play with an apprentice. So normally these guys are just called sidekicks. So you can get Tress as a sidekick in any number of players. They are kind of like the followers in Freelancers. I mean, not really mechanically, but thematically. In the 1 and 2 player games, you have an apprentice. You're still only managing one deck, but the apprentice is like a place where you can stick some wounds and so that you're doing enough actions, right? Because if you go to a location book and there's only 2 of you, usually you have to get more than 2 actions in.
And of course, for people that don't know, Veldamax, the Merc Champ, was also a crossover with Freelancers. So we're doing that a little bit lately.
And Black Saber with Crystal Clans?
Black Saber was just free art.
No, it was a special crossover. It was a special event.
I think I just looked through old Crystal Clan art and was like, oh, this one will work. And then, of course, Con Queso was just, you know, we had to call out the first promo from the first edition.
Yeah, which was probably a bistro name.
Legendary. So why don't you guys give us a little info for people who don't know about like what Wandering Galaxy actually is? Because it's by the time this podcast is up, it'll be on Kickstarter. People can go back it. So just give us a little insight into people who don't know about the game.
We have, at this point, our Crossroads series, we rebooted. We had Forgotten Waters, which is a kind of a party adventure game. And
rebooted is in we became independent company again, having bought back the company name and some of the assets from Asmodee?
So I would call these games, one word I use is adventure party games. We had a pirate one, Forgotten Waters. It was really acclaimed, did well, that I was the co-designer on with Isaac. And then Donald did Freelancers, which is our silly fantasy version of that.
Freelancers, very high JPM, joke per minute.
Yes, very, very high. Because that's, Donald and Bistro collaborating on all of the writing. I always wanted to do a sci-fi version, but I haven't had time. And Jerry was also thinking about the possibility of a sci-fi version of this system, which is, I know I had a very early meeting with him and realized like he had the same concept for it that I did, which to me is Forgotten Waters and Freelancers, as much as people love them, it can never really be it's hard for it to ever be someone's favorite game because it's very scenario based, and there's a finite number of times you tend to play them. And so Jerry had done an old game called Aftermath, which was a little bit more sandbox, open-ended, and you could sort of pick and choose your missions and what you do. And I had told him that I really liked that system of how the games are, the sessions are organized. And he had the same idea, like, let's make one of these games, but sandbox, kind of infinitely replayable, because you just kind of go and do whatever you want. So this is a ragtag small crew of a little ship, and just think like Guardians of the Galaxy. And at the beginning of each campaign, there's different starting spots, but no matter what, you're going to meet someone who's going to give you a ship on a loan, and you have to pay them, your monthly installment or whatever. So each game session, you can pick up all kinds of different jobs. I think there's like 70 job cards in the game, and you go and try to do jobs to earn profit, and you need to get 7 profit by the end of the game session.
Which is usually going to be 1 or 2 jobs. It's usually 1 or 2 jobs, and maybe you did some gun running in between, or some smuggling, or
right. Some things might give you 2 or 3 profit, or you pick up some cargo and sell it at the space station. And it's just this totally open thing where you're constantly getting new opportunities for jobs, and you're putting them out on the map where you got to go, and you're making a plan, and it's you just have no idea what's going to happen, but you kind of have this freedom to move around.
And you get the jobs organically too, just by being at a place, you might discover something or meet somebody that generates a job.
Right. In Forgotten Waters and Freelancers, each player had roles like the navigator or the boatswain or whatever. But all you really did was just keep track of a thing. You didn't make any choices related to that. In Wandering Galaxy, that's kind of taken up a step, because if you are in charge of weapon systems, yes, you have to track the enemy dials and stuff, but also you're going to have chances to work the ship, and you'll have choice of what to do, of what weapons to upgrade, or if you're the science officer, what science project to work on, or whether to put power in the ship or find a new job if you're in navigation, different things like that. So now those roles come with just a tiniest bit of meat in the mechanics.
I'd say it's a decent amount of meat, because in addition, you're not just rolling dice for skill checks anymore. You're deck building.
Right.
You're playing cards into skill checks that have different symbols and maybe different abilities too. It's definitely the meatiest. For those who don't know about this series at all, this is a highly produced series that we spent a lot of time and money on. It runs with an app, though. With the Kickstarter, you'll be able to get entry books if you hate apps. The apps are fully voice acted by professional voice actors. That's Donald's background is as an audio engineer for Chris Sabat, who's the voice of like 5 different characters in Dragon Ball Z, and a character in Hero Academia. Is that what other one's called? Anyhow, it's a big deal. And so he has all these voice actor connections through that, and he does all the recording, all of the the vocal coaching and directing, all of the sound design, and so we end up with this really shiny, what feels a lot like a role-playing game without any of the intimidation factor of somebody having to plan out and be the dungeon master and run the game for other people, and without like the intimidation of having to role play and act and improvise and all that. It's a you can have that experience without all of the prep work and without any intimidation for new players. And so that's kind of been that series. And with this one, it's the meatier mechanically, and it is far more open-ended as far as you're not going down like a semi-regulated path. Universe just kind of becomes open to you to explore, but it's still got all of that voice acting, all of that narrative. It's just the narrative's more emergent than it's ever been before.
Yep.
Sounds cool. So the Kickstarter starting what, the 9th, you said? And then how long is it going to be going till?
1 month. So it'll end like as Gen Con's ending. Gen Con will be our last big push to be like, hey, last chance to back it after we demo a game for somebody.
That sounds good.
So you can play the demo at Gen Con if you're unsure.
Yeah, or just stop by and look at it and we'll explain it to you and answer your questions if you can't get a demo in.
But there will definitely be demos.
But also, obviously, with a Kickstarter, there's always tons of explaining. Multiple videos from content creators and all the Kickstarter stuff. And as far as like, you have to do a lot of dancing around to assure people that they're going to get a good game.
Will there be any add-ons from your guys' other products? I know there was talks of like doing a Crossroads bundle, but are any of the other games you guys have going to be available as add-ons?
No, for the most part, we're trying not to. Well, I would say for the whole part, we're trying not to do any of the stuff that is kind of on the edge of being anti-consumer that kind of can come with a Kickstarter. So we're not trying to do any of the big FOMO stuff or anything like that in the ways of Kickstarter exclusive stuff, but you will get $10 off the retail price of the game. You can bundle it with our past Crossroads games for much deeper discounts. We'll have add-ons of the entries book. So some people are very opposed to apps for a variety of reasons, like, oh, I just don't want a screen, or fear that the app's going to go down or something, or they're going to be cut off from technology and not be able to play it. We will have those entry books as potential add-ons.
To the question of would we put like other Plaid Hat Games and like the
Oh yeah, I ignored your actual question.
the backer kit add-on. I don't know. Do other companies do that? Just put like random games unrelated?
Yeah, a fair amount of companies. Like for example, All Play has been a company that's done a lot of like Kickstarters recently, and they'll like have their bundle of like 4 games, and then in like the Pledge Manager, if you want to add on any of their other copies, they like allow you to.
Yeah, I don't think we're prepared to do that outside of the US. Maybe the US, UK, AU, we could pull it off, but worldwide it would be tough because our games, the games aren't in the same place.
Yeah.
But this is our first Kickstarter, so we're really hoping that we can expand the audience for these games that are really, really, really highly acclaimed. We don't always get as much attention because consumers as a whole have decided like that's going to be their game discovery mechanism is crowdfunding.
Some number of them, because we have it pretty consistently at a convention. We'll have somebody come up and say, "Hey, I missed the Kickstarter for this one," with any of our big games.
And like, oh, there isn't one. And I'm like, what?
We missed it too.
There's definitely been a feeling that there's we don't know how much, but there's some level of the populace that just never hear about our game because we're not putting it on Kickstarter.
Kickstarter is a big platform nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Is it still, you said $10 off if they kickstart it. Is it still set to be at a $60 price?
It's a $70 price, so it's $60 for the Kickstarter people.
Okay.
It's a big box. It's like the familiar tail size box, so it's like a standard square but deep. The box is full. It's heavy.
It's got a whole card catalog.
The only reason we can do it at 70 is because we just found this great manufacturer that's been offering us great prices for quality work. So rather than just take all that margin, we're trying to pass it on.
And after Wandering Galaxy, are there other games in the pipeline that are coming up, or anything you guys have been working on?
Nothing that we could mention, right?
Ashes has been, something that we continue to do. If you don't know, Ashes has got a solo and 2-player co-op mode now. That everything that Ashes has for versus works in this 2-player and co-op. It's been really critically acclaimed. People really positive about it, and we continue to release content for that.
Nice. Ashes has always been a solid staple. Nick's still doing some great work there. And what about some of the timelines with things that we talked to you guys about in the past? Like, is the website still on its way for Summon Wars?
The website's supposed to launch on Tuesday.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's the same day as our Kickstarter, isn't it? I just realized that.
Tuesday is going to be a big day for Plaid Hat Games.
Okay, maybe we should move that up or back a day. I don't know.
So, potentially before this is even up, the website should be operational, which will be awesome.
Yeah.
And then Steam release still sometime this year or next year or...
Yeah, let me give you my current tentative roadmap that I've arbitrarily decided on. So I'm pretty close to having time to put some heavy work into Summoner Wars Online again. For sure, I want to do some timer-related stuff, like make the timer really reliable. Right now it relies too much on the client's clock, and that's why things get messed up over time. But part of that is making a more robust live game mode, which at this point I don't think is going to be too hard to do once I get that timer fixed. So instead of like a 45-minute timer, making it so that you have so much time on a turn. If your time runs out, it ends your turn. If you miss a whole turn, you forfeit. So it's, people can go into that without worrying about, being in there forever or getting stuck and somebody jetting on them and not being sure what's going on. So I want to do that. Have some AI improvements in mind. The other thing I'd like to, that's just an idea, but I think I've come to believe it's going to be worth doing. I haven't even talked to Colby much about it, but with the Steam release, to also have with that basically a single player horde daily mode, or I don't know if it'd be daily, weekly, what, but basically, yeah, a single player mode where some more kind of mindless commons and champions come at you and you try to survive for some specified number of turns, and you get a score. Well, you get how many turns you lived, and you get a score if you make it to the end of 12 turns or whatever, and then you have a leaderboard for the week or the day or whatever it ends up being of people who beat it and badges you can earn with that. I feel like that would be really beneficial to people who are especially mostly playing by themselves, something that changes up regularly and presents a fun challenge, but also really fun for competitive players for something else to do to try to maximize and get on the leaderboards and discuss, that week's combination of units that's coming at you and how to build a deck for it, because that would be the other part of it, is that you could play, well, maybe it would be a variety, but at least some of the time you could play whatever deck you wanted, which means, customizing your deck could be a fun way to play against that.
Nice. That sounds really cool. I think that could be awesome.
Or maybe like you have a set summoner everybody's playing with, but you can customize the deck however you want, type of stuff.
Right. It could have a variety. It could be different all the time. It could be wide open. Sometimes it could be very set. Sometimes just the summoner, for sure.
Kind of like how something like Slay the Spire has those daily climbs or whatever. That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, kind of like that. I think I can put that together easily enough that it would be good to have it ready for the Steam release, so that when that goes up into early access, I would think it could go into early access. The only hard thing about the Steam release is hooking up authentication with Steam and getting hooked into their store, which they don't require, but it's, worth doing. That's, we could probably do early access before we even have that stuff done.
What about tournaments? You mentioned trying to automate tournaments a little more so that they're just rolling tournaments that auto-generate as they fill.
That's definitely in the plan too. Yeah, like I finally hadn't done these enough where I feel like I have a really good understanding of what every single step of the way is, so that you could do 54 person tournaments and they're just rolling all the time. If you're not currently in one, you can sign up for one, and as soon as it gets signed up for, it starts, that kind of a thing.
As soon as it fills, right?
Yeah. Should we expect another deck building tournament soon, like we've seen in the past?
Oh yeah, I think so.
If we get that rolling tournament stuff done, there'll probably be constantly a rolling base deck and a rolling deck building.
So yeah, all that stuff is on the short-term list. I'd like to work on all of that to make the Steam release, the best it can be. I always want to, of course, along with mobile releases came along the way a lot of improvements. It's a good sort of motivator to get a lot of new features in and things like that. That's all part of it.
And then the most important timeline, have you gotten your clone up and running? I mean, when's this?
We've given up on the biological path, so we're trying to train AI based on everything I've ever done.
Yeah.
Robot Joe, got it.
Yeah, everybody's talking about AI, so
If only it could do everything that they promise, then our problems would be solved here. I did ask ChatGPT to run this SQL query for me to help find out who's played the most games, and it's still running, so I don't know.
Did you break ChatGPT?
Well, ChatGPT just gave us an answer that's apparently slow.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I don't really... I have switched to an offline database, so it doesn't look like the one I've used before, and it's not working well, I guess.
This has been Discard for Magic, but honestly only in part, because this episode we recorded with Joe and Colby was so long that we decided to split it into two. This has been the first part, and in a couple of weeks we'll be back with the second part with your community questions being answered and lots of stats for you. See you guys in a couple weeks.